Good evening, Bahrain. I'm Bernadette from Gulf Brands International, and you're watching Wine Online Wednesday. We're on episode 7, and tonight it's exploring Piccini. So Piccini is one of the major winemakers in Italy, and it's actually got a very long history. It goes back to 1882, when the first Piccini winemaker started off with a few miserable 17 acres or so of vineyards in the heart of Tuscany. Move forward to today, and a lot has happened in the meantime. It's now the 4th generation Mario Piccini. He has 5 beautiful estates in the Tuscan region. He also has a winery in Basilicata and as well on the island of Sicily. He's also managed on Sicily to have it in a very special location on the slopes of Mount Etna, making some extraordinary wines from such volcanic soils down there. So last year, the Drinks Business International, which is a very important trade publication, rated Piccini as one of the top 10 most influential Italian winemakers, which was a very big award for them. So they currently export to 85 different countries around the world. The most important wine that they export is their Chianti with an orange label. So I'll cut back to the orange significance of orange a little bit later on. So I think we need to start with some wine. So the first wine up tonight is the Pinot Grigio. So this wine comes from the Venezia, from their property there. So we're up near Venice itself, and 100% Pinot Grigio. So let's have a little look. Oh yes, very, very light straw colour, a little bit transparent around the edges, showing that it's actually a very young wine. I think this is vintage 18. So, and let's see how it is on the nose. Oh, gentle flavours, subtle, a little bit citrusy. There's some peach, a little bit of apples. Not the very green Granny Smith apple, something a little bit more mellow, but still very fresh. Let's get into the tasting. Oh, the apples are coming through, but it's crisp now. Crisp, but not zingy. Refreshing, that's it. Just nicely balanced acidity, so it's very refreshing. So while you're having a little sip, if you look at the label of the bottle, it's got actually quite quirky. They've used the colour orange here and there, and this is in homage to their famous orange label Chianti, which is so special around the world. They use it a lot in all their communications because for them it's a very joyful colour to have. If you look at the label, so you can see that they've brought in elements of Venice, little icons which are instantly recognisable. So we've got gondolas here. There's a few gondoliers, I think, and that's the bridge, the Rialto Bridge, very famous. And you, of course, have to have Piazza San Marco and the cathedral there. There's also a lady here on the label with a rather stunning hairstyle. This is Desdemona, who was a very beautiful Venetian socialite of the time. And here beside her is her lover Othello, the Moor. Now when they got together, Desdemona's father was none too happy, so the lovers eloped. Very famous story from Venice. So I think it's rather quirky, quite fun to have it all in. So I think this is a lovely, refreshing wine, good for any time of day. I think you could have some light dishes with it. Italian antipasto, definitely. Salads. I think it could some fresh seafood, lightly cooked. I think would go very well with that one. Okay, so let's move on to the second wine, and now we're going into the heart of Tuscany. So this is rather a special wine. This is the Vernaccia di San Gimignano. Now, Vernaccia is the grape. This is 100% Vernaccia. It's in the San Gimignano region. This is very famous. You do find Vernaccia in a couple of other regions in Italy, for example in Sardinia, but it's not really so popular. The honour for this wine is that in 1966 it was the first Italian wine to be rated a DOC, which is the denomination of its origin controlled. My poor translation from Italian. It went on to 1993, and its status was elevated even further to DOCG, which means it's guaranteed status of origin, in a more select area in Tuscany. And to this day, it's still the only white wine rated DOCG in Tuscany. So, what's so special about San Gimignano? The area, it's an elevated city, quite close to Firenze, Siena, in the heart of Tuscany. And the higher altitude is perfect for growing Vernaccia grapes. It will, within the city itself, actually, I think we need to taste the wine, then I can talk. So let's have a look. Now, we've got a more golden colour coming through here. Honey is the wrong word to use, it's definitely more golden. If you've got the two wines, look at them side by side. You can see the depth of colour in the Vernaccia. In the Pinot Grigio, while you had transparent edges, the goldenness is still going through to the edge. Let's see what it's like on the nose. It's got apples as well, but these are riper apples. These are more like autumn apples. There's also a hint of lemon zest. And something else coming through. Let's see how the palate goes. Lovely. Ripe apples. Hint of lemon zest. And the other flavour I was getting is Fino sherry. There's a certain dry yeastiness coming through. And it's very attractive flavour. And I think, yeah, it's coming through on the nose as well. Yeah, definitely. There is also a slightly savoury, bitter aftertaste, which just adds to the body, the mouthfeel. And there's also a little hint of almond, I think, coming through here. The Vernaccia grape itself, its name is supposed to have come from Latin vernacular, meaning to be expected. And in the Renaissance times, in the area of Tuscany around the city, the nobles, it was all the thing to do was to have your own little vineyard, and the Vernaccia grape was the go-to, the grape that you must have. Again, we've got some quirkiness on the label. They've picked up in the town of San Gimignano, there are these square, tall stone towers, and they're quite striking if you do ever get to go to San Gimignano. So these are all over the label, and sitting on top here, there's a rather cheeky looking owl. He's got little orange cheeks, obviously the orange coming through. Actually, we've got three owls on this label. Because it's elevated and with the tall towers, it had a commanding view over the whole area, and that was why the town was so famous as a walled town. So, what else can we pick up? Yeah, I'm really getting the sherry coming through here. It's quite a literary friendly wine as well. In 13th century, Chaucer referred to it when they were in his works on January. And if you happen to have a Martin in the house, or a Martin coming around for a drink, I'm sure he'd love this, because in Dante's Purgatory, Pope Martin IV was reprimanded for his gluttony because he used to enjoy partaking of pickled eels along with his Vernaccia. Moving forward today, I think a fritto misto, Italian style, would be a little bit more appropriate rather than pickled eels. So any kind of fish would do well. There could be even stronger dishes, some poultry, white meats, and you could even throw in something a little bit more spicy, like some baba ganoush, maybe. Yeah. It is rather a rich wine, and I think it's developing very well. Yeah. Okay. And let's go red. So we're still in Tuscany. We're in the heart of Tuscany. This is, again, rather special wine. It's got a lovely history as to how it's made. It's predominantly Sangiovese, which is the grape of Chianti. So you would expect you're going to have a lot of gorgeous, luscious fruitiness coming through here. 15% of the blend is Merlot, which gives the wine a bit of earthiness and savouriness. And then there's about 5% of a local grape called Colorino, and that is used to give a very deep colour, because the wine really needs a lot of colour, this one. So very quickly, the method is a harvest just before the normal harvest takes place. Some grapes are picked and are put onto these rattan kind of drying mats. They're placed in stone houses so that a lot of air circulates and gradually dries out the grapes until they become shriveled and they're actually on their way to becoming raisins. The second stage is that the normal harvest takes place of the rest of the grapes, and that would normally be about 80% of what goes into the bottle. It's fermented in the usual way. And then the dried grapes are pressed separately. Then they're added into the original wine mix. What happens is the dried grapes are now packed with loads of sugar. As soon as they go into the fermented wine, the yeasts go crazy and a frantic second fermentation takes place. And that's where the Impazzimento comes from. It's the Italian for craziness. It's rather an old technique. It's called Governo al Toscano. So it was an old technique in Tuscany dating 19th century, even earlier. And it was typically a wine made by peasants, because by adding this super sugared up wine, they knew they would have a full-bodied, rewarding wine at the end. Now, this took place in the time before fermentation could be controlled, temperature controlled. So it was almost an easy way to make sure you're guaranteed to have a good wine. So it's nice to see that in the modern day we're actually reviving this technique. So let's see what we can get from this wine. So I mentioned Colorino adding colour, and boy, it's deep, inky colour, very thin mirror edge, and on the nose, forest fruits, definitely, cherries. So there's a lot of Sangiovese fruit coming through, and a little hint of a bit of savouriness from Merlot. Soft aromas. Let's see how it tastes. Can you get some raisins? Yep. There's some dried fruit, and it's interesting because on the one hand you get the Sangiovese fresh fruits, and then you're going, but hold on, there's something else going on here. Oh yes, there is that dried figgy, raisiny note coming through. So it's not sweet. It gives a fruity, sweet sensation, but it is not sweet. The finish is dry. And actually it's a little bit herbal in the end. There's some forest herbs, I think is the best way to describe it, coming through. Here we're talking about rich meat dishes, braised meat, stewed, like a beef cheek, cooked until it just gently falls apart. And this would be a big friend of cheese, definitely. I would love some cheese. So here we have this rather charming chap with the traditional Renaissance style outfit. He looks rather commanding, and it's interesting to use it because it's the technique typical of the time when this was first used. Okay, so there we have 3 of the Piccini wines. So the Pinot Grigio, I think easiest way to describe this is refreshing. Then you look at the Vernaccia, and to me this strikes me as a noble white. I think maybe it's its Renaissance roots or something, but the roundness in the flavour, it's a more generous white wine. And then finally we come to the crazy one. It's crazy and unexpected. you've got some fresh fruit sweetness, and you've also got dried fruit on the end. So I think that's, for a first taste of Piccini, I think that's quite a good selection. Hope you enjoy them.